Hi painters, I'm back again with Lemmy the Bird, and we're painting another picture for you guys today. I actually have a class tonight in Elizabethtown, Kentucky at Flywheel Brewery, and we're doing a fundraiser tonight for the American Mini Pig Rescue Advocates. I've been told we're actually going to get a couple mini pigs to come join us tonight, so that'll be fun. So because we're painting for the pigs, we will be painting a pig. And I figured it would be a good idea to do this video for you guys if you are unable to make the class. I know a lot of you like the farm animals, and it's also a good way to raise awareness for the mini pig rescue. So you might think that's kind of a weird cause, because why do mini pigs need rescuing? Well, actually, there's a huge need for mini pig rescues. A lot of times with all exotic pets, really, people purchase these pets and then get home and live life with them and realize that their lifestyle cannot handle those animals. And mini pigs make good pets. They're very clean animals and very, very smart. But they do have special needs, and they're not for everybody. But they are super cute, and especially as piglets. And that leads to a lot of people adopting these animals, and then they find their way to rescue because the original owners can't handle having them. So the foundation is a great one because they rescue these pigs and find them appropriate homes, or even help keep those pigs in their original homes. Lemmy's taking a bath. Anytime you give a bird fresh water, they decide it is bath time. Because you always dirty your water right away, don't you? Oh, you taking a bath in that tiny little bath? Oh, birds. And now he's splashing me. So our painting today, the pig, is we're only using 5 colors. I forgot to get one of them. 5 colors today. We're using Craft Smart Black. We're using Craft Smart Bright Red. We're using Craft Smart Orange. And we're using Craft Smart White. Now, the background has a combination of 2 colors. In the original, they used a black with a blue, probably something like your bright blue from Craft Smart, or even phthalo blue. I'm actually not using that color today. I'm going to use Bahama blue. And with the background, you could have a combination of any 2 colors, or any color for that matter. But it's a very dark background. And at first glance, you would think it was a black background. But if you mix in another color with that, it adds another level of complexity, and it makes your overall painting prettier. So, you know, Bahama blue is my go-to color, so that's the one that I picked. So, like with any acrylic painting, we start with our backward. Oh, scratch that. We have to plan out our painting. Now, I've already drawn mine on there because I had to make stencils for tonight's class, and I went ahead and did mine. But for you viewers and painters in internet land, you guys don't have that stencil, so you're going to have to draw it on there. And my recommendation is to draw it with chalk first, or even pencil, but I like chalk. And then map it out on your painting. Now, like I always say, it's a lot easier to break down a drawing into basic shapes And we'll start with his nose. His nose is not, don't think of it as a nose. Think of it as a very rounded heart. Like no sharp edges, including this right here. It's just like a rounded heart shape. Almost like a jelly bean shape, really, but more narrow, more heart-like. Directly under that, he has a cute little smile that goes right under that nose there. Okay, so once you have that, then you can go ahead and add a couple rounded nostrils in there. Again, you guys are doing this in pencil or chalk, not paint. I'm doing it in paint so you can see it. Then I'm going to go ahead and add his cheeks to the side, which are, just think of it like two parentheses. And this parenthesis is going to kind of continue outward and go down like a little shoulder there. Now, right above those parentheses will be the eye. And it's not a complete circle. It's more of a half circle, or even a little bit more than a half circle. Think of the sun rising over a hill, kind of. And that's on the top of both parentheses. Then we're going to make a dome right over his head there. And then we're going to add the ears. Now the ears is just kind of find where the eyes are and go above. What are you doing? What are you doing up there? And you're all wet. Just helping? Oh, so pretty. So pretty, bird. When he's nice and clean, he likes to ruffle his feathers up real big and look beautiful, don't you? Hi, baby. Hi, baby. What are you doing? Okay, so you go above the eye. So I'm just going to find this side of the eye and this side of the eye and do a parenthesis shape out and off of the canvas there. And then another parenthesis right under this curve here. And then I got a little bit of a line there that kind of shows where his back and the background will be peeking through. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, but this side's a little trickier because we have the whole ear, not just the parenthesis shape. Would you stop? My painting is going to be a little bit different than your painting because I have birdie bathwater all over it now. What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to follow that outer edge there and that outer edge there. And we're going to do our parenthesis shape kind of up and out. But the top parenthesis is going to curve around and then kind of meet back. Now his ear is going to be, or his other ear is going to be like that too, but you can't see it, of course. It's off the page. And that's basically the map out for our painting. So, and if you want to, you can go ahead and do that with paint as well, so it's darker and you don't lose your lines later. What is up, little man? Go over there. And so you don't lose your lines later, because when you get to painting, it's easy to cover over the chalk or the pencil. So if you want to go ahead and line that like I did in paint, what you're going to want to do is you're going to mix a little bit of your red and orange together, and you're going to add black to it. That's what gives you that dark, it's like a rusty dark brown color. If you want to, you could just use brown, but I'm a big fan of mixing the colors. So I like that tone because it's going to be used in all of our painting. So let's start with the background because that's what we normally do with acrylic painting. Start with the background and work your way forward. I'm just going to get a little bit of black and Bahama Breeze on, or Bahama Blue rather. I always do that. And I'm going to start adding that to my background. I'm going to do a very textured background. So I'm going to just kind of flip my brush back and forth like so. And just picking up Bahama Blue and black randomly and flipping it back and forth. I'm not actually making X's like this, although you could do that if you did enough layering. But I'm just kind of, sometimes I dab, and then sometimes just kind of flip my brush back and forth. I don't want it to be completely blended. If I completely blend it, I'll end up with a solid color, and I don't really want to do that. I want to have some variations in those colors. You don't have to be real careful around that line because he's going to kind of have a little ruffle to him later. Every once in a while you want to dip in your water, just kind of water your paint down. If you see little specks of canvas peeking through, you're not using enough water. The water and the paint combination is what makes it fall into the pores of the canvas. I like to kind of swoop around my my lines there, so I don't have to worry too much about just flipping my brush back and forth. It makes me able to paint a little sloppier. Again, it's mostly black, but I am throwing in a little bit of Bahama blue just to give it that extra color. And I'm going to do that for the entire canvas. And if you plan on hanging it on your wall without a frame, you're going to want to do your edges as well. Go around his head here. That gives me the freedom to kind of go crazy with my texture and not bring it too close into his face. So we'll have to paint over that later. If you get it on your pig, it's not a big deal. Acrylic, very forgiving paint. You can paint over it 100 times. Just gotta wait for it to dry. Paint right over it. Get some more black. I'm going pretty gray. Do that for the entire canvas. Back and forth. Flip my brush around a little bit. You don't want to see any patterns. You just want it to be kind of random. I always like to make my edges a little darker than the center. Kind of gives it that vignette look. You can kind of swirl your brush around in circles. You could actually do that for the entire thing if you would rather have softer, less brush strokes. A lot of times my painters will ask, I have so many brush strokes on my painting, you can see them all. And those brush strokes are where you pick up and put down with your brush. So if you don't lift up your brush or put it back down, you won't have any of those. So you can just kind of do a continuing pattern. So that swirl method would work for that. With a textured background though, you don't have to worry too much about brush strokes. You don't see them because there's so many colors going on. Okay, so that's a pretty good start. A nice background there. And then we'll move on to our pig. Now, the pig is going to be made up of those colors I mentioned before. The red, the orange, a lot of white, and we're actually going to use some black with our red and orange to make that rusty brown color. You can do this two different ways, and everybody who paints kind of has their preference on this. You can start dark and work your way light, or you can start light and work your way dark. Now, my theory on this is if you start light and you work your way dark, it's going to be softer and more blurred. If you start dark and work your way light, it tends to be harsher and more dramatic. And he's kind of a soft pig, so I'm going to start light and work my way dark. So I'm cleaning my brush, and if your water is really dirty from the black and Bahama blue background, or whichever color you chose, you can clean your water now and get some fresh water for this, because he's going to be very, very light, almost white. He would be what you call a pink pig, but he's not actually pink. Kind of peachy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a teeny little bit of red and orange and kind of add that to my white paint, just a little bit on the side. That's going to give me that peachy color. I mean, it's almost white. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start filling in that color. around my lines. My mission is to get paint on every bit of the canvas. And this is kind of a, excuse me, sir. Lemmy's throwing food at me. You want it back now? Oh, it's a Nutriberry. Here you go, buddy. He's Moody Bird. This is like basically like a coloring book. It's just filling it in, filling in your shapes. And what this does is kind of take the work out later. After I fill in the entire painting, I don't have to worry about missing anything later. It will all be colored in. I just add my shading and kind of build him up, make him more three-dimensional and realistic. But right now, I'm just getting the color on there. And again, it's a little red, a little orange, a whole lot of white. Get that pale peachy color. It's the color that you see most of there. I just realized I forgot a little bit of background there. I'll fix that. Okay. I filled in his entire face and his chest area. I'm going to take that color and add that up into his ears here. Up into his ears. The inside of his ears is a little bit darker than the outside. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and fix that background because that's going to bug me. So I'm just taking a smaller brush now. All of that black Bahama, but then just fill that in. So that little corner there. Oh, you can't see it because of Winnie's chain. There we go. Right there. I missed that earlier. I'll just fill that in. So to make the darker color for the inside of the ears, all I'm going to do is add a little bit more red and orange to my already red, orange, white mixture. Get a little bit darker of a color. And I'm going to fill that in the center of his ear. You don't have to worry about it blending completely because we want to see those different variations of color. He's going to look very flat. So like I said, we're just kind of doing the easy work now, the filling in. Think of it like a coloring page, just filling in our shapes. And then the other. There we go. Okay. And that's the same color that we're going to add to his nose. It looks kind of wild and bright, but we'll tone him down with some shading, some highlighting. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and do his eyes while I'm kind of waiting for that to dry just a little bit. The eyes is black. The eyes are black, and this is the only part of the painting that I'm going to use true black for. Everything else it would be too harsh, but the eyes we want to be vibrant, stand out a little bit. And I'm just filling them in solid black for now. Again, they're shaped like the sun coming up over a hill. Okay. And I'm also going to add a little bit more black to my brown-red mixture. So it's not quite as dark, but pretty close. And I'm going to fill in his nostrils. And this part of his mouth here. So that's not quite black, but it's close. That's a pretty good start for that. I'm cleaning my brush again. And clean my big brush. And I'm going to go back and add some of that depth. So I've got that base color there. I want to darken it up a little bit to just add some shading, some shadow work. I'll start with the ears because that's going to be pretty dark. It's red, orange, and black. Just a hint of black. Not much at all. Okay. And I'm going to just take that, and this is where your direction is really important. So we got to think that his fur is kind of, can you call it fur when it's a pig? I'm going to call it fur. Hairs? I don't know. But it's going to start in here towards that dark shadow. It's going to start in here towards the center of the ear and kind of work its way out. So with my brush, I'm just kind of starting in there and just feathering outward, and I'm giving it some depth so it looks like a little shadow there. And I'm going to do that on both sides. I got a little dark, so that black didn't get mixed in, but that's okay. Just going to give it. You may think that that's too harsh, and you can always add more red and orange to that. Tone it down a little bit. Kind of go over it, add that, extend it out a little bit more with a little lighter of a color. Just giving some depth to the inside of those ears. And the same color to kind of shadow his nose here a little bit. Just giving some depth on this side of his nose. And a little bit on this side here. Comes down. That adds a little bit in the center there. Okay, so that gives a little dimension to his nose. Cleaning my brush again. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter this time. I'm going to take that brown, black, red mixture and add a little bit of white to it now. And I'm going to use that to start shading him up a little bit. So under his chin's a little darker. I'm going to drag some of that downward under his chin here. A little bit more white as I work my way down so it gets a little bit lighter. It's all under that smile he has. I'm very lightly touching the brush, just adding it gradually. We've got a little bit of that shadow right under his snout, meeting that smile. Okay, and he also has it around his eyes up here. A little bit on it around the tops of his eyes, just like a crescent moon shape. It gives a little bit of depth. Not depth. A little bit around his cheek here, a bit on this side above his cheek, kind of down, drag it down his cheek here. And we're going to give him a little bit of that down here too as well. Just kind of round him out a little bit. Make things a little bit more realistic and complex. Okay. A little bit to the tops of his ears. A little on his snout, but that's going to be a lot of highlighting later. I'm pretty happy with that. Just barely touching my canvas, just kind of dragging what's left over that color I only loaded my brush a couple of times. Do that whole thing. I think that is a common mistake new artists think. They think that the process of painting means dip your brush and then paint and then dip again and paint, and you don't necessarily have to do that. You want to kind of just use what's on your brush until it's not working for you, and then you add more paint. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. I'm going to clean my brush. And now it's time to kind of fluff them up a little bit. So that color that I was using, I'm going to add some white to. Lighten it up again. I'm going back to pretty much our start color. But now I'm going to fluff them up. I'm going to add a little hair texture. And there's two ways you can do this. I'm just going to use my brush lightly, kind of like I did here, and just go outward with it. But I turn my brush a little bit and I add these fine hairs. But I'm going to show you an easier way, a kind of cheating way of doing it. Do a little bit like that. The cheating way is clean your brush, dry it off really, really well, and then take your brush and kind of mess up the bristles. For some of my regular painters, you know, we do this a lot for trees, and then we'll do the dab thing. But if you just separate your bristles a little bit, you can dip the ends of them in your color, and you can lightly drag and you get what looks to be like hair because of those separate bristles. It's kind of an easy way to add that hair like texture. So what we're going to do is we're just fluffing him up, and he's fluffiest around his ears. That's where most of his fluff is. So we're just kind of lightly, and this is one of those less is more thing. You don't want to get too crazy with it, otherwise you will have a very furry pig. Notice earlier I didn't even know if I could call it fur because pigs aren't really furry. So you don't want to do that. But you want to add little hair texture. It shows he does have hair. And that's going to kind of go on the outside of the ear as well. Just follow that. Lightens up things a little bit. Makes them more realistic. Okay. Like I said, he's furrier there, but he does have a little bit of a furry look everywhere. So you're just going to add tiny little bits of that throughout the rest. Not too much, or he will get fluffy. You do not want a fluffy pig, like velvet. Just adding a little bit of that texture throughout. A little bit, little bit, little bit. It's got some of that going on around his eyes as well, which you can barely see because the skin is light and we've already painted it. But there's a little bit, and it will help if you add that to him. Just a little bit around his nose. Just a little bit on the chin. Okay. So now we got to do a little bit of our detail work. Let's start with the nostrils. I'm just adding a little bit of a highlight to the bottom side of his nostrils. And that's just kind of like the light, a little bit of white with those other colors that I was using to fluff up his hair. A little bit under his nostrils, maybe a little bit on the top of his nostrils. And I always like to give a little highlight on the snout. Maybe a little bit right above his mouth there. Kind of adds depth a little bit. Bottom of his cheeks there. That's pretty good. We're going to give him a little bit of gleam in his eye with that color. It's pretty light. Just a little bit of gleam. We'll give him a little bit harsher gleam in a second. Now, this is where a lot of my artists have a hard time with the eyelashes. For that, you can use a liner brush or you can use your small flat on its side, which is what I prefer. But the problem that my artists want to do is they want to do eyelashes like upward, like cartoon lashes, and that's not really what they look like. They kind of start at the top of the eye and come down at a diagonal, and they just kind of spread out from there. So we're going to leave a little bit of black at the top. We're going to do a diagonal downward swoop for these lashes. And it's white, which you wouldn't normally expect, but you can add just a little bit of gray outside of the eye to where you can see it. Outside the eye to where you can see it against our light background. Gray on the outside, but I do white all the way across too. The other eye. Downward swoop, leaving just a little bit of that at the top, like an eyeliner, and downward. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm gonna add a little more black to the mouth there where I kind of slipped up with my highlight. Now let's add one more touch. I'm going to clean my brush off. Clean it off. Dry it off because I want it to be super clean. So I know my water's a little bit dirty, so I'm drying it off pretty good. And I'll mess up my bristles. That was a pretty good technique. And I'm going to dip in just pure white now. Just pure white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little fluffy texture to the inside, what we did before with the coloring page type strategy. And I'm just adding white. And what this does is it gives him a little fluff, but it also gives him that highlight because there's not really white in his skin. It looks very white, and it probably looks really white to you because of poor video quality, but it's actually all pretty peach. So I'm adding just a little bit of white highlight. Another color makes him puff out a little bit more. I'm adding my paint kind of heavy. Get a little bit of the texture going there. There you go. Now he's still pretty flat. But I could stop here if I wanted to, because he's cute. But he's still pretty flat. So I can add just a little bit of that gray that I was using with some white. So it's super, super pale gray. It's got a little bit of that Bahama blue in it and the black. And I can add that just a little bit under his chin, just to give him just a little bit more depth. What are you doing, Lynn? A little wrinkle there. Just giving him a little bit more depth. And it's also taking the color from the outside and kind of adding it from one plane to the next. I like to do that. Oh, we had a spill. Mess maker. So Lemmy decided to paint his playground with dirty water. It's okay. It's okay. This stuff happens with birds. I'm pretty close to finished, I'd say. All that is left is signing it. And I know if I was in class, and what I'll do tonight is we'll add some glitter to it. And what I'm thinking for glitter is going to be like a smoky quartz or antique silver, just to add a little bit of highlight to them, which I'll probably do. I don't always use glitter when I paint at home, but it's one of those things that my my painters in class really seem to enjoy. Cleaning up Lemmy's mess. Okay. Go back to your playground. Okay. That's pretty good. Cleanup job. So if we were going to add glitter, let's do a little bit of sterling. Now, the thing about sterling is you actually will see that. You will see that color against that light background. And if you get too much, it's going to look like your pig has mites or something, and that would not be good. So if you are going to add glitter, use it very sparingly. Do not pile it on. I always say in class, I always have one or the other. I have artists who are like, no glitter at all, because they think that it's not professional or it's not actually paint and they don't want to add it. But then I also have that artist that really likes the glitter and thinks it's a good idea to just paint all the way across their painting with it. I wouldn't do that either. So, what I recommend for the glitter, now this is a sterling silver or antique silver, and it's got that tarnished silver look, so it's got a little bit of a gold flake to it. But like I said, I don't want him to look like he has mites, so I'm going to just kind of lightly add that, pretty much like a highlight. I like at the top of his head there, top of his ear. You probably can't really see that in the video. It's one of those if the light just hits it kind of thing. On the top of his cheeks. You know, like your prominent parts that are going to hit the light. And then it'll have a little bit of shine to it. A little bit around his ear. Just a little extra touch. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot the twinkle in his eye. Back side of the brush, without the hairs on it, a little bit of white paint, and we can add a little twinkle in his eye. That helps. It's very important. Very easy step, but very important too. And then you want to sign it. And in class, I usually sign mine with gold paint. Yeah, that's not professional. I can't get it open. Alright. Most of the time when I'm at home, I sign it with a brush, but in class, I've gotten used to signing it with a paintbrush or with a paint marker. A lot of my painters do not like to sign their name with a brush, so I provide those paint markers to make it a little bit easier. But you definitely want to sign it so everybody knows it's your work. Oh, the paint marker's not working that great. Take it down. Warning. No messes. Okay, so I see the problem. I'm trying to sign it over what I just glittered so it's wet. And it's not working. So you want to make sure your painting's dry before you try to sign it. Alright. And that is your pig. I'll call him Wilbur. Thank you. Y'all have a great day.